Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to the November 27th, 2025 Audit and Finance Committee meeting. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nations. The city of Regina owes its vibrancy and strength to these lands and the diverse Indigenous people whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Regina home. Some members of committee and council or city administration may be attending the meeting today through video conferencing. I would ask to remind those of the following. Please ensure that your video cameras and microphones are off. If a member of committee wishes to speak, use the raise hand function. You'll be placed into the speaking queue. When speaking, remember to unmute your microphone and enable your video camera. All votes will be conducted with a recorded vote. The deadline to register as a delegation for reports recommended for consideration by City Council is Monday prior to the meeting at 12 p.m. Can I have someone move a motion to approve the agenda at the call of the chair? Councillor Mancinelli, do you have any questions? All right. Is anyone opposed? Okay, carried. Adoption of the minutes. Can I have someone move a motion to adopt the minutes of the public meeting held on October 30th, 2025? Mayor Wyszynski? Thank you. Anyone opposed? Is there any errors or omissions? Okay. Call the question. Any opposed? Carried. Administration. How are you doing today? We'll now consider item AFC 25-25, Municipal Revenue Sharing Eligibility Criteria. I will ask CFO and Deputy City Manager Darren Anderson to please introduce the report.
Thank you, and through the chair, the Minister of Government Relations requires City Council to pass a resolution annually that confirms the City of Regina has complied with the eligibility criteria to receive the Municipal Revenue Sharing Grant. By January 15th of any given year, City Council needs to ensure the requirements have been met and a City Council resolution or declaration of eligibility has been completed to demonstrate that the municipality has fully complied with the outlined conditions for receiving the MRS grant. The report before you outlines that administration has reviewed the requirements and confirms that all conditions noted in the resolution have been complied with. We submit it for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Can I have someone move the report? Councillor Mancinelli? Any questions from the member on the report? Okay. Councillor Seclease, did you put your papers in? Yes. Yeah, we're talking about the big papers. Yeah, you're good? Okay, perfect. Okay, if there's, does anyone want to have any questions or debate on the report? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, would the mover wish to close the debate? Okay, perfect. I'll ask the clerk to call the vote. If it was only that fast and all.
Councillor Seclease?
In favor.
Jamie Ng?
In favor.
Councillor Mancinelli?
In favor.
Mayor Wyszynski?
In favor.
Chair,
In favor?
the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. We will now consider item AFC 25-26, reserve priorities and funding options. I will ask CFO and Deputy City Manager, Mr. Darren Anderson, to please introduce the report.
Thank you, and through the chair. On October 8th, 2025, City Council directed administration to consider funding options in the 2026 budget for reserves below their minimum balances at the end of 2025 or within the next 5 years, which include the general fund, winter road maintenance, transit fleet, fire fleet, solid waste, cemetery, and planning, sustainability, and stabilization. City Council also directed administration to consider funding for the new noise attenuation reserve and funding to reach the newly approved minimum limits. This report provides information to City Council for consideration in advance of 2026 budget deliberations. I have my team with me today, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have. However, the owners of the reserves are not here, so if there is a detailed question about a reserve, we may have to get back to you. Thank you, and we submit the report for your review.
Thank you very much. Can I have someone move the report? Councillor Mancinelli. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the report?
I guess first of all, I noticed the report comes with information and not really so much a recommendation, but maybe the tools we'd use to build the reserves back up is a better way to say it. Is that the right way to read that? And I guess I should wait for an answer.
Sorry, Mr. Anderson?
Through the chair, yeah, we describe options for how to get there, and then the actual recommendations are part of the budget package. So the budget package in the enhancements list has what we recommend.
Okay.
Sorry.
And maybe if I could get you guys to talk about that budget package for a bit and how that overlays with information in the report. You said the recommendation in the enhancement list incorporates it. It talks about the way you want to reorganize for how you distribute the investment income, and that overlays into replenishing the reserve, correct?
Correct. And maybe I'll pass off to Ms. Callender to give an overview.
Of what the recommendations are?
Yeah, what's in.
Yeah, sure. So in the budget report, I think it's Appendix K, we have a list of the recommendations for each of these, well, each of the reserves. And so for the general fund reserve, the recommendation is the 4.2% mill rate over the course of 5 years. And maybe just before I get into that, the consideration was really, how do we build up the reserves without a major impact in any one particular year? So there were several options given here, and the recommendations for, believe for 4 of them are the smaller rate per year over every year for 5 years. So that was in general why we selected the lower rate, but over 5 years, for every year for 5 years. So for the general fund reserve, it was 0.42 mill rate over the course of 5 years. For the asset revitalization reserve, it was a 0.32% over annually for 5 years. For the planning and sustainability stabilization reserve, there is a request in the budget for a dedicated resource, I believe for around 85,000. And so that's in the budget for consideration to do that work. The fleet reserve, the recommendation there is 0.62 mill rate annually for over 5 years. And then the fire fleet replacement is 0.11% annually over the course of 5 years. Then when it comes to the general utility reserve, there is already a recommendation in the budget for an amount for that reserve. And then the solid waste reserve and the cemetery reserve and or I'll just start with this, or stay with the solid waste reserve. There's some information in there, and essentially we're recommending just to consider that in the 2027 budget because those things happen later on. In the cemetery reserve, again, kind of wait and see what happens if there is that sale of land and what that would do for the cemetery reserve. So no specific recommendation in the budget to do any increases in mill rates for that reserve. And then the winter road maintenance reserve, there is a recommendation in the budget to increase the operating budget by 0.9% because the last 3 years, there's been an average of 3 million. We've been 3 million short in the operating budget for that for the winter road renewal, winter road maintenance, which is essentially snow removal. So that is in the budget. And then for the noise attenuation reserve, there are some options there that we'd considered. The recommendation is to wait until the rest of the reserves are all, either at minimum or well on their way before considering any funding options for that reserve.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I just appreciate you kind of going through there one time. Like I said at the start, they had the tools. It's nice to see how they were applied there just for the follow through. Kind of watched these reserves from before a pandemic and then watched how they deplete so quickly. It's a pretty serious budget we got going this year. I noticed we're starting to save money into reserves again when we're just kind of finishing off tapping them. I've had to build up money before. Is this the right time to start saving again, or are we still in a little bit of danger, I guess?
Mr. Anderson?
Through the chair, yeah, we would be recommending that we start to replenish these reserves at this point, or at least get them back to a point where they don't continue to deplete. Our forecast here in one of the future reports for this meeting, and also the forecast we did for the budget, is that our reserves continue to go down. And so we have to address that with council through trying to make sure that those are replenished. They're obviously meant to be some ups and downs in reserves, so there's no use just holding money steady. But at this point, we feel like so many of them are below the minimum that something has to be done to start to correct that trend.
Appreciate that. I appreciate the multi-year planning. And I've never experienced this from my time on council, but if I understand things correctly, when times go good, we can have an increase in addresses and permits and influx of money. And that might also allow us to organically build the reserves back up without having to hit the tax dollars so quickly if we were so fortunate to turn the corner that way. Is that something that could happen as well?
Through the chair, yeah, and especially in the program reserves, so winter road maintenance is probably a good example. That's not necessarily on the amount of snow, but how fast we get it increases the cost. So we've seen 3 years where climate change is really changing the snow pattern. Mm-hmm. And so we need to just be better at budgeting there, right? And making sure that we account for that. But it's November 27th. And we have had very little, knock on wood, snow removal. I know, we just ruined it. So that's an organic way. We're hopeful. Now, we went over budget in the first half of the year. So hopefully we won't stay over budget given the good start to the winter season here in the fall. Yeah. But that's how you would organically do it. For stuff like the general fund reserve, obviously that's really organic essentially. I would say because of the high inflation period we went through, we got really aggressive in our budgeting. And so we really challenged the city around a lot of the estimates like snow removal, etc. And so we're running constant deficits. So that's a natural way to take money out of the general fund reserve. The natural way would be to start budgeting so that we have some slack in there, that in good years we would actually put some money back into that reserve. Or like we've recommended, we can actually put a mill rate to put money in there directly to fund it if we don't want to be more conservative in our budgeting approach.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Councillor Mancinelli, you had asked about the investment reserve or the investment income. So right now, maybe I'll speak to what I understand council wanted. So anything that goes over budget for investment income, we split, half of it goes to the asset revitalization reserve and half of it goes to the general fund. Now the thinking there was, you know, we switched our policy recently to invest our money, and so we've had a lot more investment income coming in. Kudos to everyone involved in that decision. We're making a lot more money. Through a couple budgets though, we used that, we were conservative in budgeting our investment income, and we had this big, you know, we were way over. So I think the thought from council was, well, we should take that and save it, right? Like we don't want to just spend it. The issue is it becomes operationally really clunky for us when we're doing forecasts. I can't forecast what our investment income is going to be. Hopefully I'm relatively close, but there's always going to be variability there. It creates this clunky moving that around. So when we get to the third quarter forecast, we're forecasting to be over on investment income, which is great news, but I have to then tell you guys, well, we're taking that away though instantly. We're not using it to offset maybe where we were on the bad side on some other expenses. What we've looked to other municipalities and what they've done when they've switched over to be more prudent in investing city cash is you create a reserve, and so all of the investment income would go into a reserve, and council would decide, okay, where do we feel comfortable that we're going to attain this? So if we've attained $20 to $25 million of investment income the last couple of years, we budget around 20. You know, maybe 15 is where we're comfortable that we can use 15 million or 10, wherever we want to be, to push snow. But given the variability in the market, what happens if we budget 20 million to push snow and we get 15? Well, now we've created a $5 million hole, right? So what other jurisdictions have done is said, okay, let's put everything, all the investment income into a reserve, and then council will decide every year, let's use 10 million of it, 15 million of it to fund operations. And then anything above or below the target would collect in the reserve. So over time, we expect to make more than $15 million a year. Then when council's comfortable, you can dividend out the income so that you have a cushion for years where investment income comes down. I think that's where we would like to get to. It's easier for council to manage. It's easier for all of us to understand. It doesn't create this, okay, we went $1 over, now we need to trigger this stuff, and then the next forecast we're under, so then that goes away, kind of issue we have. Meets the same concept, I think, of what council was thinking, is that we want to be able to use, you know, now that we're making more money on investing our assets, let's save some of it, not use it all to push snow and pay for this year's operations. So if this committee has any questions on that, or, you know, we'll have to get a timeline where we can start to develop that and bring it through A&F to council, but that's sort of what we're thinking right now.
Yeah, no, I had read through that before, and as one of the councillors who stuck his finger in the meat grinder and set up that whole split, what I really was trying to accomplish was transparency to the public. I believe council should do its job well and be responsible in saying yes to the asks, and what I was, as well as holding administration accountable for project cost and timelines and everything else. What I believed, what I was witnessing, was using investment income to kind of quietly fill in some problems here and there, and not the transparency that I thought that the public demanded. And so I think that your prudent planning is a lot smarter than mine, and it does meet the merit of what I was wanting to accomplish on behalf of my residents, is that transparency. A very good job was done by administration on reorganizing the investment stream of income, as well as setting that up on behalf of the residents of Regina. And I thought that that should be known to the residents as well. That's an important pillar of our budgeting, and I just didn't want to disappear and taken for granted or misused. So I think you hit all the criteria that I really wanted to come through with there, so thank you.
Thanks.
Councillors, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Bezo. Thank you for the easy to, consume information here. And Just for the people that are watching from home or wherever they might be watching from, and I count a total of 2 of them on YouTube right now. It's a pretty big shame considering what we have to deal with in the next month. I guess it's easier to go onto social media and critique, but not actually watch the details. So just to make it simple for everybody who might be looking at this, we're talking about 5 ways, 5 strategies that could increase reserve balances. 1 is increasing mill rate. 2 is increasing fees. 3 is transferring funds from one to another, so robbing Peter to pay Paul in a way. 4 is reducing services. And the 5th one, which is a bad idea, is using debt. So I'm not even going to include the 5th one in the discussion. I think Councillor Mancinelli touched on it, and you touched on it too, is the timing of all this. So should we be putting forth a mandatory timeline to get something up to minimum reserve levels? Because we're talking about 9 of 24 total reserves, right? 20? 28. Oh, because we added 4, right. So 28 reserves. And these are the 9 most important ones as determined by council, was it? Is that how you've written it here?
Through the chair, no, these are the ones that are under the minimum.
Okay. So the balance of the 28 are not in the red. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So these are the ones we have to focus on. I'm sorry for trying to make this sound simple, but it's really important for people to understand this, because we try to have conversations on the street with people and we want them to see what reserves really mean. So the fact that we have 28 reserves is not a problem. It's just the fact that we've got them all in different places. That's not a big deal. The number of reserves does not create any red flags. But of these 9, we see that some need to get to at least minimum level. Should we be talking about a timeline to get them there, and do we have to prioritize them by timeline? Does that make sense to think about it that way? Or does that paint us into a corner?
So through the chair, no, that's exactly the way we thought of it. So the first step is identifying where we think we're short in our reserves.
Yep.
So that's identifying these 9. And then, our team sat down and said, okay, well, do we have to fund them in 2026? Right? Do we have to fund them over 3 years, over 5 years? Where do we feel comfortable? For different reserves, for different purposes, they should have different, we didn't sit down and go like, hey, let's write up a policy and make sure that everything's good in 3 years. Because, we can borrow against our other reserves for amounts of time if we're comfortable.
Yeah.
But, that's why when we put forward, we sort of said, looking at the landscape and all the other pressures that we have as a city, we kind of picked for a lot of them that 5-year time horizon, and that's what we put forward in the budget. It was okay if we put in mill rates to directly go into these reserves over 5 years, we'll do that. Things like the planning and stabilization reserve, which is supposed to be self-sustaining through permit fees. We've just obviously had a period of time where we weren't calculating, so we weren't charging enough fees to cover the costs. We're going to need someone to look at that, is what Ms. Doney's area sort of said, is like, this is a complex reserve with a lot of stuff running through it.
Yeah.
Let's get someone with their eye on it so we don't end up in this position again. But again, they have to look at and do a whole bunch of public consultation around increasing fees and what type of fees and which fees will go up 20%, which fees will go up 10. So there's a lot of work related to that reserve versus, the ARR. The ARR, we just have to start putting money in there.
Yeah.
Like, we have to start saving. And best practice for municipal organizations is to put away a percentage every year of your replacement value of all of your facilities and assets. And the city of Regina did a report, and we picked 2% as what we would want. I know the city of Saskatoon has a target of 1.2% based on the analysis they did. But we need to move towards something like that, where we have a policy in place that every year we're putting aside money, right, that can be saved up. So when we need to replace an HVAC system or a roof or what would have it be on a facility, we've got money there and it's not put on the taxpayers of the day. and the council of the day to go, okay, where are we going to find $10 million to replace the roof of X building? And so that's what we've put forward, is sort of this idea that we start to develop a process where we're charging people, or facilities, I should say, every year to put away. And there are municipalities that do that. Once you start doing it and it's built in, then it's part of the municipality's best practice. But it's hard to get it started.
Okay, thanks for that. So if we've got a 5-year window and we've got these, I'm not even going to include the fifth option of using debt. I'm just going to include the 4. Which of the 4 is the one that has the maximum impact? And if it's taxes, property taxes, what does that look like over 5 years in terms of a number for people to think about?
Look at the budget and the budget thing.
Sorry, through the chair, and Ms. Callender's going to look to see if we can get the actual number for you. But in the budget package, in the enhancements, we have them all listed out. I just didn't bring my binder down here, and I apologize. But we do have a number,
Okay.
and obviously, and that's of the approach for most of them, that we take a 5-year build-up
Yeah.
to get back to those reserves. It's a significant number, though. It's not a small number. It obviously is our, the most available revenue tool for us is property taxes. That being said, things like planning and sustainability has to be done through permitting fees, right? So that stuff will be through fees. Some of the stuff in the utilities is obviously funded through the utility fee. So stuff like solid waste is a fee. So it all just depends on what the specific reserve is for.
Thanks to our mayor, I have those numbers in front of me now.
Perfect.
I know you said they're significant, but so we don't scare people, they're actually less than 1% in 2026. They range from 0.03 to 0.62% in that year alone. So I think that's positive. It's not an emergency, so the house isn't burning down, but we are on top of it. So that's what I see here, if this is correct. And some of them are 0 in 2027. So not too bad. So we've got the timing, we've got the understanding that the tax increases is the fastest way to get there in 5 years. How much would the fee portion be? Like, you don't have to give me a calculation, but is that like 10% of the total to get us there? Is it 30%?
Through the chair, so the fee ones are a lot more complex. So fees for, again, to bring up the planning and sustainability reserve, there's a lot of different permitting fees that go as revenue into that reserve.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to do a fulsome review to say, and
Okay.
public engagement, right? We don't want to just come out and say, hey, fees
Yeah.
for building a deck are triple what they are. I'm
Yeah.
just scaring people
Yeah.
for no reason here.
Right.
But we need to have public consultation, do a model up that says, okay, how do we start to replenish this? First thing is to get back to break even, so we're not digging the hole further and further every year. And then what do we need to do to start building back up through that? Again, something like solid waste, right? That's the fee we charge for garbage collection.
Yeah.
That, we just need to make sure that we're being diligent and watching that fee every year and making sure when we do our forecast. So we have no current issue in solid waste. We're just flagging that in 3 years there will be an issue in that reserve. So again, that's just for us. That's a good process for us to go, okay, we need to make sure we're annually upping that fee every year so that we can cover the costs as they go forward.
Excellent. So just one last point in terms of clarification. The only quote-unquote free way to increase the reserves is to have a great return on our investments. Other than that, we're looking at fees or taxes. So there's no easy way out of this unless we start making speculative investments, which we're not going to do, which could end up putting us in an even bigger hole. Are you aware of any other jurisdictions that are looking at an investment policy that is more risky than the one that we've just agreed to?
Through the chair, no. So
Okay.
most municipalities, there's some municipalities just keeping their cash in a bank account still,
Yeah,
right? That are going through the like we did not that long ago. So, but I would say most municipalities of our complexity and size are putting money into investments and, making sure we identify the liquidity risk and having buckets, like doing a fulsome area, not just throwing money into the market, but, being very strategic about how you do it. I think most cities of our size are getting there. There is companies out there right now trying to do similar things for smaller cities that don't have the talent and resources to handle it. But I would say it's just great practice. If you're going to hold taxpayers' money,
yeah.
you want to make sure that you're investing it wisely and not just keeping it in a bank account.
Chair, do I have time for another question? How am I doing?
Sorry, your 5 minutes has started.
The last question I have is, considering the growth rate projected for Regina, how does that affect these reserves?
Through the chair, so we could get into specifics. So how we calculate the max and mins
Yeah,
depends on a lot of things, and so as we grow and collect more revenue, add more, right? We add new fire stations, you add more assets, obviously, then we recalculate on a regular basis all those mins and maxes. And so that's what it would increase. I don't know if Ms. Callender has any specific. No.
maybe I'll ask it in a more specific way. I was thinking more of population growth. So there are some people that think we shouldn't be promoting growth in Regina because it makes it more expensive for everybody to live here. Would you agree with that, or would you have another point of view?
Through the chair, so no, that's absolutely false. So I'll pick on the mayor. We have one mayor for 255,000 people. Calgary has one mayor for 1.3 million. The cost of the mayor gets cheaper per person the more people you have. So economies of scale always provide efficiencies. I think where people get confused is something like around the water network expansion. So cities like ourselves need to invest in the infrastructure to be able to grow, and that can come at a cost on current taxpayers when you decide to do projects like that. So yeah, there's a short-term window where planning for growth costs money, but if you decide you're not going to grow, the problems are immense. I don't want to have those conversations around degrowth.
So for the benefit of the people that might be tuning in, growth is good.
Growth is good.
Thank you. End of my questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mayor, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you for the metaphor. I love to be included in those. That's great. No, that's great. Thanks for the explanation. Really well put together. Thanks for putting the time and effort into this in a very, as Councilor Mancinelli said, in a very transparent way, easy to consume. I don't want to make you not to make a decision on it or to influence in any way, but I'm just looking for expert thoughts and opinions in terms of the execution of this. As indicated, we're going to a tricky budget week. And, albeit, like Councillor Sickley said, I wouldn't say they're stark numbers. I think is a very reasonable approach, but we're probably going to be in a situation where we're going to be having to pick how aggressive we pursue these options in part or whole. In your opinion, what if we had to get into a conversation in the council budget meeting around, staging this in any capacity? Do you have any opinion or thoughts around if we had to stage what line items in terms of whether it's the GFR or the asset revitalization? Like, would you have a prioritization in terms of what you would say would be most critical in terms of the risk of the city of what we would tag onto first or second or third?
Great question, Mayor. Sorry, through the chair. I would say, so the one that keeps me awake at night is the asset revitalization reserve. And that's more not the reserve itself necessarily. It's the fact that, we have a lot of infrastructure. We really built the city up in the 1960s into the 70s. And that infrastructure that was built then is really starting to need repair. The Lawson's a good example, Taylor Field. We have a long list of items that are going to require attention in the next short to midterm. There is no money in that reserve, as you can see. There's not enough money to even start to talk about that. So the importance of that for me is more from a culture thing and for us to set up a process where we start to be better. And so we can start to put significant money in there. We're not going to fix that problem through the reserve. So maybe that's why I'm not worried about the reserve right now. I'm more worried about, okay, let's come up with a good policy for how we want to make sure going into the future we're fully funding this thing, but it's going to take a long time. On a short-term one, where I'm worried is the fleet. And so to remind the committee, when we paid back the money owed to CRA for real during COVID, we took that out of the fleet reserve. So we took $8 million out of the fleet reserve. What we've also done in budget cycles, the last few, and I'll say since inflation got high, to try and keep it down, is we would do a model and say we need $1 million to go into the fleet reserve, or $2 million. Let's cut it by $1 million. It's just an estimate. We don't know when that truck's actually gonna peter out. And so it was one of those estimates that was easy to cut. And so we've put forth, what we believe is a big number in this budget is going into fleet. We're gonna have a healthy debate there as to how much we wanna put in there. Do we wanna, put the full amount in there that we've put in the forecast, or do we wanna ratchet that back and take some more risk on those vehicles? But I'd say I feel uncomfortable given the numbers here on the fleet reserve and given the fact that we've taken out the $8 million and probably based on our model, not fully funded it by a few $1 million the last few years. So that's the one I'm looking at. And that's why in the forecast, we have a very significant number coming into not only into the reserve, but also to pay for the aging fleet that we have. Right. Those are probably the two that I worry about the most. The general fund reserve, I would love to feel more comfortable there. We're not really prepared for an event. Right. Like we want to be as a city prepared on the risk side for an event or something that goes really sideways on us. We're not at that point. If something major were to happen, we'd be at the beck and call of other levels of government. I think we want to build that up over time. And I think it's prudent for us to recommend starting to have a dedicated mill rate that would just put money in there specifically. Great ideas to replenish that with extra investment income if we feel comfortable over time that it's actually extra and not just riding the wave of ups and downs. But I would say those are the ones that I've paid most attention to.
Perfect. No, that's very helpful. Yeah, and again, I think it's important that the public does understand the risk of all these things and the decisions that we've made and the implications of how much risk we're taking on if we start to push these things off. So no, thank you so much. And again, thanks for the information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Ing. Dr. Ing.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you through the chair. I want to, again, thank everyone in the administration for, again, making such a clear and concise document for us to read. I just had a couple questions on page 4, 5, and 6 with the alternative options of the percent of increase, either a one-time mill rate or alternative mill rates over 3 to 5 years. Just on general fund reserve, for example, a one-time mill rate increase of approximately 2.09%, that's a one-time, versus 1.05 over 3 years. Mathematically, that would be 3.15 over 3 years versus 2.09. Is that mathematically? It would make sense if it said over 2 years, 1.05.
Through the chair, so yeah, that's just because we would have 2.09 for, sorry.
Extra time. And it just, it's the same thing with, when you go down the list with the mathematical
Yeah.
proposals. or
And so
options.
maybe Ms. Callender said if we want to take a quick recess, she can show you guys. I don't know if that helps for the public, though, all two people watching online.
Let's take a few minutes to get something up on the screen.
To reset.
Okay.
Okay.
So, if anyone's objecting, I would like to call a recess for 10 minutes.
Just clarify.
We're going to cut the meeting short. We'll call it back to order. Miss Chandler, how are you doing today? All right, we got some numbers on the screen. Can you
Yeah, so I
give
can,
us some projections?
I can go through how I created this. So this is for the general fund, and assuming that we require 20.7 million to get the fund to its minimum, that's the start. So essentially, what I've done here is just divided the 20.7 million by 3, so over the course of 3 years. And for each year, we would need 2.09 to generate that. So based on 1% mill rate equals 3.3 million. That's how that plays out. So after the 3rd year, you wouldn't need, you could, I guess, use that 2% for something else, repurpose it. And so the same calculation in the next column, which is over the course of 5 years. So you take the 20.7 million, divide it by 5, and then you divide the 4.1 million by 3.3 million to get the 1.25% that would be needed. Once you put it in, it would stay in for 5 years. The next block here that says annually over 3 years, how that works is you can see that it builds. So every year you would add 1.05 to the budget over the course of the 3 years in the first one and over 5 years in the second one. So that's, one is just the same amount every year until you want to stop, and then the next one is it builds on each other. So that's how the calculation works, and that's, you can see in the green there, the 0.42.
We do have a question, Dr. Ng.
Thank you through the chair. No, thank you so much for the explanation. So it's a one-time mill rate increase and it stays for over the course of 3 years, not once a year required to get to a minimum in 3. So we have to do it for 3 years, the 2.09 minimum, one-time
It would
increase.
go in once, and it
Once.
would still generate the 6.9 for 3
6.9,
years.
correct. Whereas a 1.05, it's added incrementally.
Every year you would add 1.05, that's
Okay.
right, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a few questions myself on some of the numbers. You guys are very smart and you do this for a living. I do maintenance stuff for a living. Some of the numbers, I'm going to say, keep me up at night more than they're keeping you up at night. So when we're looking at some of these numbers, I'm going to refer to Appendix K, which the mayor just shared with us. All the reserve, general fund, asset revitalization, planning, all the reserves kind of add up to about 2.43%. When we're multiplying some of these numbers out, 3.3% or million per percentage, we're getting about 8%, according to the budget, in 2026, about $8 million for revenue that's going into the reserve. My comment and my question, my concern, and I'll go into the question, is when you're using that 2% number of assets and 2% asset value to get to this number of what your reserve is. From a guy that does maintenance my entire career, I use that as a maintenance number. When I look at assets, I look at depreciation of the asset and depreciation life cycles of the asset. So I'm going to use a specific example, fire truck, bus, something to that effect. If our buses are $1 million each, 2% asset value is going to take me 50 years to buy the bus. I know it's not going to happen every single year. We're going to buy a substantial amount of buses. But some of those numbers, I would use 2% for a maintenance cost, and I would depreciate that asset over the life cycle of the asset to get to replacement. But the 2% increase of what you're projecting we haven't taken account inflation in that number, if we're just going with straight 2%, and I'd be running a number at 2.8% inflation. So what keeps me up more at night, I'm going to say, is when I look at this 25-year projection, we're going to be in a worse situation in 25 years than we would be right now, because our number is not inflationary and we're writing our assets off over too long of a period. Buildings are one thing. We can write buildings off over a 50-year. CRA wants us to do it over 27 years, but obviously this building's standing for 50 years already. So assets we will do over the life cycle, but when we look at the number of assets that we have and the amount that's going in at 2%, it's, my comment is it's too low. Can you explain how you got the 2% versus writing it off over the life cycle of a 20-year life cycle, for example, and depreciation? Mr. Anderson?
Thank you for the question. And
just 1 second, please. I'm just going to clarify for the two watching at home, it's in the budget book on Appendix K. Sorry, Mr. Anderson.
no problem. Thank you. And through the chair. So yeah, so just in general, so buses are a good example. They are in the fleet reserve, so they're not part of the asset revitalization reserve, because we do a complex model that determines how much money we think we need for maintenance and replacement of buses. Same with fleet, same with Mosaic Stadium. So Mosaic Stadium has its own reserve. When we set that up, we did do this process to make sure we're saving every money. So when we replace the turf, I think it's scheduled for 2027, we will actually have money in that reserve to pay for the turf. So what we're focusing on for the ARR, again, everything utility is in the utility model. So all the undergrounds, that kind of fun stuff, lift stations, that kind of stuff we've built in there. What we're focusing on for ARR is buildings, is the 185 facilities. Of the 185 facilities, of the 185 facilities, we have roughly replacement value on that of $800 million. So 2% would roughly be saving $16 million a year. Now, every year in the budget, we spend and collect from taxpayers about $10 million. So as part of our capital budget, we have about $10 million to put into those facilities. We're still short, so every year we're short $6 million.
10 million maintenance wise?
Well, it's part of our capital. So it's part of our capital budget. So we have $10 million we're investing into facilities every year. That really is costing us, based on the report that was done in 2013, $16 million. So every year we have a $6 million hole. That's where I think we're both concerned. Is that hole is growing exponentially every year, especially when you give inflation on top of it. So every year that replacement cost of $800 million is going to grow. But
By
if
3%.
If you do 2% of the replacement cost, that's going to take, and your replacement cost is growing with inflation. That's how you handle inflation without having to increase the percentage. But we're not investing 2%, and we're not saving for it. So what this report is outlining is sort of, I'll call it a first step. Let's start the process of saving and putting money directly into the ARR. And I will say, myself and my team want to do more work on that one, because it is the one that keeps me awake at night. Glad to hear you more than me. Makes me feel a little bit better.
Well, in a few years, our jobs depend on it.
Yes. So I would say, what we have put forward now, we feel is as a first step. We don't think that this is going to get us to where we need to be long term, but we need to do more work on it. And our team is continuing to look at how other organizations or other municipalities do this, because it becomes quite complex between a rec facility versus a police station, right, versus a pool. Right, all of these things, they can have fees collected, so do we include it in the fee, right? Do we put it in a lease for a rec facility? There's all different ways that municipalities collect that 2%. So we're not done. I want to alleviate your fears, and I think we share the same concern. And I just want to say what we're putting forth here is a step forward, but we're not done in how we want to eventually get to maturity on this reserve. That answer your question?
Well, I'm glad to hear that we're looking at this kind of, at first, I'm going to say 5-year program. And I'm glad to hear that you're looking at the kind of life cycle program, a 25-year program, which a reserve would actually encompass. And I'm glad to hear that we're going to be looking at other assets like the fee usage. I also would like to, for consideration, and I think we don't have the right audience in the room right now, but something will be coming up probably next week in budget by a motion about consolidation of assets. So we do have a lot of assets, we got a lot of old stuff. And it's time to say, we need to shut down the old stuff because it is hemorrhaging cash, and perhaps combining assets and putting the new one in. So sometimes we need to spend in order to save. If that makes sense.
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, that's definitely all the stuff we need to do. Again, we're getting a lot of aging assets, so we have to be creative in how we want to move forward.
Okay. On that note, I don't think I really have any questions, but I'm glad that is keeping you up at night, and myself, our sleeping pill budget's probably gonna go up a little bit because of this. What's that? Sleepless for the week. Yeah. Coming from the doctor. Okay, so that is, I don't think there's any more questions on that. And is there any more questions on the reserve? So this is a short 5-year plan. This is something I'm gonna say, looking at what we're looking at. Tell me if I'm right. Appendix K from the budget book, 2.43% to start putting towards our infrastructure. That's $8 million a year. On the average household, can you tell us what the average household that works out to again? $22 on the average?
Shoot. If I would have brought my budget book down through the chair, we'll get that number for you. But that is just to get to the minimum
That's the minimum.
too. That's just for the minimum. And so we want to set a target for these as well, not just have the minimum and max, but get to a point where we have a target. And then we'll start working towards the target as well.
Okay, perfect. But I believe from last budget meeting that we had about $22 per mill rate increase. Was that the, like, per percentage mill rate is about $22 to the average household? No.
For the average month.
The average month.
Annual, yeah. It could
Annual.
be.
It's like $22 annual, or is it monthly?
This is on TV, so I don't want to commit.
Okay. Get that back to us, please. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions specifically on the reserves. Councillor Mancinelli, would you like to close?
Really kicked up a fuss about this in the past. Really appreciate all administration's work. Thank you. And thanks for working through it. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. At the close, I will call the vote.
Through you, Chair, I will start with Mayor Bashinsky. I'm sorry. Did I turn the right one on?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Mancinelli,
In favor.
Mr. Warwa. Sorry, could you just say that one more time? Thank you. Mr. Willman,
In favor.
Councillor Sickleys,
In favor.
and Mr. Ing.
In favor.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We will now consider AFC 25-27, the 2025 third quarter reserve reporting. Can I ask CFO and Deputy City Manager, Mr. Darren Anderson, to please introduce the report?
Thank you, and through the chair. As per Schedule A of the Regina Administration Bylaw 2003-69, administration is required within 60 days of the end of the third quarter to report reserve balances to City Council. This report meets that requirement. Further information regarding options for funding the reserves has been provided in the reserve priorities and funding options that we just discussed in today's agenda. I have my team with me today, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have. I submit the report for your review.
Thank you very much. Can I have someone move the report? Mr. Ward? Would you like to speak on the report?
No question at this time, nope.
Okay. Any members of the committee like to speak on the report? No one? Okay. I'd like to ask the mover if you'd like to close debate. Thank you. If there's no question of the report, we will now ask clerk to call the vote.
Thank you. And apologies, Mr. Chair, I forgot to get your vote on the last item we were on. I'm assuming that you were in favor.
I'm assuming it's a yes too.
Okay, sorry about that. So on this item, I will start with Councillor Mancinelli.
In favor.
Mayor Bashinsky,
In favor.
Mr. Willman,
In favor.
Councillor Sickleys,
In favor.
Mr. Ing,
In favor.
Mr. Chair,
In favor.
and Mr. Warwa.
In favor.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll now consider item AFC 25-28, the 2025 third quarter capital expenditure report. I will ask CFO and Deputy City Manager, Mr. Darren Anderson, to please introduce the report.
Through the chair, this report presents the city's third quarter capital expenditure and forecast. As outlined in the report, forecasted total spending is $344.5 million out of available funds of $684.6 million. Administration regularly monitors the capital project progress and looks for opportunities to return funds to source. As part of the 2025 budget approval, $11 million of funds were returned to source. Seasonal dependencies, changes to contracts or agreements through negotiations, and supply chain challenges are the main risk factors that contribute to delays of projects. All projects are funded, except for the two projects which have been noted in prior quarterly updates. The Regina Exhibition Association Limited Food and Beverage Services and the Pacer Park relocation. In both instances, administration is actively in discussions of how to fund these items and or close them out to source. I would like to introduce at this time my colleague Sheena Carrick, who is here today, Manager of Financial Analysis and Support. She is here to help answer any questions that you may have, and with that, we submit the report for your review and are open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Can I have someone move the report? Mr. Scalise, would you like to comment on the report?
I'll save my questions till my colleagues get a chance, because I think I took too many questions away from everyone last time.
Thank you. Is there any questions on the report from the committee? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. So with this, I'm assuming we're monitoring closely our projections going towards the end of the year. Do we feel there's any adjustments before we get to budget time in terms of the capital carry forward and what that might mean for funding projects going into next year? Or is this more of the update at the point of time at that time, but we're quite confident in what we're going to into budget?
Through the chair, so I would say we just got through sort of our busy season. As you can tell here at the end of the third quarter, we didn't have a lot of spend, even though we're forecasting a lot. That's due to the timing of engineers and project workers now focusing on getting invoices through payables. After that, we'll be able to take a look, and maybe I'll ask Ms. Carrick to see if she's been notified of anything where we feel like we've finished a project and we'll have excess budget, but I'm not aware of any.
No. No.
No, fair enough.
At this time, no. So, but it definitely, when we do get that, we will bring that through to council and make sure we reallocate it.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Jason Mancinelli?
Thank you. Just thinking of your reply, you just put out there. All the contracts coming to close, all the construction stopping, budget at this time of year, all the pressures that come on at the same time, the importance of maybe capturing some of that carry forward if it is pertinent to addressing some of the budget. We run a year end at the same time this is all happening and come up for budget at the same time this is all happening. In future years, would it be smart to space this 2 months out for more acuity in budgeting, less questioning from council members like me hoping for a lucky win on a capital carry forward project to help out with the residents? Is there anything we could do smart that way and adjust our process to make it easier on all involved?
Mr. Anderson?
Through the chair, I would say understand the time crunch, definitely, because
Better than me.
we live it.
Yeah, you're the guy doing it.
I would say I will take it back and look and see if there's some timing we can do around that. I will say, we'll go back and go back to our partners in Mr. Doney's and Miss Bryden's areas just to see if they're forecasting any money to come back. I think that's probably the most likely, is that we can say, okay, because Mr. Doney did share with me discussing this report that all the projects they planned on doing for the year were done and completed, and they're happy, and they're not indicating that there's extra funds to come back, but would definitely help out during budget time for sure.
Yeah, for the record, I don't really expect the extra funds to come save us. It's a maybe at best. I'm thinking for the efficiency of administration. We're very alert to how many full-time employees there are at all times, especially at budget time, all the work that has to get done, and then to have such high demand projects all come due at the same time for the same reason. I'm just looking if there's a way we can cooperate so things come smoother for all sides.
Through the chair, really appreciate that, and we'll definitely take that away and see if we can come back and request something if we feel it will help out.
Yeah, but only if it's efficient of administration. That's what I'm
Yes.
Well, I see no further questions, but I do have one myself. Knowing what it takes to put together a report like this and the amount of those project engineers you guys have to chase around to get the information, what do you need to make this reporting structure more efficient on your end?
Through the chairs, this is a great question, and I just felt the excitement from my colleague. We've put forward, I will say this, it's my first year here, so we've sort of been, feels like I've been drinking through a hose for 10 months. But, when I've had time to sit down with my great staff, the amount of asks, so this report's a great example. This is a pretty new report. If we go back 7 years to when Ms. Carrick started at the city, we were a pretty vanilla finance department. We did a mid-year update and we did the annual financials. And really that was the bulk of the work. Through, council, the prior council and the creation of the A&F, we've grown reports that flow through my office from around 45 7 years ago to 90 to 95 this year. And reports like this that are very significant lift. So, but we haven't increased the resources. Like we didn't say, oh, if we're gonna double the amount of work in finance, did we double the staff? Now, I'm not saying we need to double the staff, but we do need to provide resources. We feel like we're just on a hamster wheel, basically doing enough work to get this report out in time to meet the standard that's been set by the policy. So we have put forward an ask. We do have some resources in just the forecast to meet the current service levels. And then we do have ask for others so that we can bolster our analytics team so that people like Ms. Carrick can spend more time actually understanding what goes in these reports and making better decisions on them, rather than just chasing down project engineers and other great people who are busy doing their core activity, which is actually getting streets opened before snowfall here. So appreciate the question, and that's sort of where we're at right now is we've had really high turnover too, given the increase in work without the increase in resources, which makes it even tougher, because now we're spending a whole bunch of time trying to train people up, and it's kind of becoming a revolving door where we're getting people in the door, and then they're going, this is too much, I'll go work somewhere else. So I hope that answered your question.
Somewhat, but I'm going to say that after working together for the past close to a year, details are very important, especially in this committee. And saying what the ask is, how is that software package coming along?
So through the chair, another great question. Hard decisions are going to have to be made around capital investments. We have put forward some asks around technology that in the package that went out for budget didn't make the list. And it's hard, because it's hard when I sit down with my colleagues and I'm arguing for new technology, which would be great. And somebody says, well, I guess then we just won't replace the streetlights that go out, right? Like, that's very hard. And I don't want to say that this is a city issue. Every organization I've worked at, when you're in finance, you're always the last to get, because it's hard to, when there's limited resources, as the city has, and you're making these decisions on this massive list, things like roads and streetlights and all the things around infrastructure comes first. And so hopefully we'll have a good conversation and come December around that, around the challenges of getting technology. And Ms. Carrick and I had a great conversation about it today, and maybe I'll let her fill in she's been here for 7 years, so longer than I have, around where our technology's at.
Sure. So just through the chair, just for everybody's information, we're just in the middle of a Hyperion project. And so I think getting that project, like finalizing it, I think will definitely go a long way into proving like not only our efficiency, but obviously the efficiency for the organization in terms of compiling the data that you guys are seeing for this report here. So is there anything else you?
Do you want to just comment on technology in general?
Meaning?
It's time to tell us about it. Like, there's no holding back. I saw the numbers. You guys are putting great numbers together.
Yeah.
The next report even tells me a different story, and it's exactly what you're telling me. But then I heard it never made the cut.
Yeah, so through the chair, I don't want to put my colleague on the spot here. We don't have the best technology, I would say. We do a lot of stuff. Projects to implement take a long time because we just sort of drip the money in. And so we get the Hyperion project is a good example. To update that software is taking us years. Could it have been a project that happened within one fiscal year? Yes. But again, to try and balance all of the competing asks for money, we take what we can get and do what we can. And that's just the reality of it. We also can't, with the resources we have, we can't replace all of our systems all at once either. So we have, right, even if we were to be given, a magic pile of money by Mr. Musk, or, if he's watching, he feels generous, we have to have the resources and time to implement that as well. So we do have money earmarked to continue our EBS project. We have money carry forward that we're, Ms. Kralik and her team are really focused on making sure our GL processes become more efficient. We do have some money in the Hyperion project, so I'm not signaling that we're not moving forward. We're definitely moving forward, but maybe not quite as fast as the chair would like.
Okay, thank you very much. I do see one further question, but keep that same thought process, because you have another report that you're going to introduce right away, and there's some numbers I want to talk to you about that. But Councillor Teclis, your questions?
For the closing, do it all in one? If there are no other questions?
Well, if there's no one question, we're ready to close.
Yeah, can I ask my questions during the closing piece? Yep, okay, I'll do that. Can we talk about specific projects tonight? Is that okay?
Yep.
So I'll just start on table 2. When you're, let's look at the aquatics facility. So total funding available shows us 26.5 million. did you just divide up the whole project and try and make it equal payments through 3 years, or do you expect bigger balloon payments? Okay,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Clerk's got to turn you on.
Need a mic?
yeah, no, that's okay. Through the chair, yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, with all of our projects, and especially those larger $100 million type projects, the way the budgeting process works is we try to budget for the amount that we think we need to spend in that year. So it's not just a $300 million project divided by 5 years and then budget that appropriately. It's more timing the budget with when we actually feel like we're going to spend the money.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we have it on record that finance says the pool is a $100 million project.
Several
So
hundred.
can we hold them to that?
Well, I heard $100 million too.
I really wish it was. I really do. So, same thing, I suppose, on the transit fleet replacement. That's a timing issue as well, right?
That's right. And with that one specifically, we've ordered buses. Buses take a long time to go through the procurement and supply chain. And so we do expect to receive those buses in early 2026. Essentially, it's just a cash flow issue. The money will go out the door early in 2026 when we acquire those buses.
Okay. And then next one, table 3, the big ticket item there is water network expansion. The numbers are still the same overall at about 187, is it, million? And that'll be completed next year, quarter 3? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding, yeah.
Yeah. So when you have funds that come back in, what's the term we call that?
Return to source?
Return to source funds? I suppose you only know after the timing of the project.
That's
You're
right.
never going to know ahead of time,
That's right.
right? Okay, and that's where Councillor Mancinelli's wishes might come true, and hopefully some of ours. That would be great, but we may be years away from knowing that with some of these projects. So, look, I don't want to get into the actual, politics of these things. That's not what we're here for. So we'll save that for December. I just want to say that, having walked through your floor, not only do you need software, you need some paint and some new furniture and a bunch of other things. If the public saw that, they might feel a little more sorry for you than they do now. But I do appreciate what you've done here. Very much. This is exactly what we were asking for at the beginning of this new council, and you've delivered every single time. And I'm really hoping that more than 2 people will pay attention to these things, because there's so much knee-jerk reaction to what we do that it really devalues the work that you've been doing. So thank you so much. We will we'll see you at the next AFC 25-29. That's it for me for this one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, I will call the vote.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will start with Mr. Willman. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yep, in favor.
In favor.
Mr. Ng,
In favor.
Councillor Sickleys,
In favor.
Mr. Warwa,
In favor.
Councillor Mancinelli,
In favor.
Mayor Bashinsky,
In favor.
Mr. Chair.
In favor.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. We will now consider item AFC 25-28, 2025 third quarter, we just finished that one. Third quarter forecast. We will now consider AFC 25-29, 2025 third quarter forecast. I will ask the CFO and Deputy City Manager, Mr. Darren Anderson, to please introduce the report.
Thank you, and through the chair. This report presents the City of Regina's third quarter financial forecast. As outlined in the report, the city is forecasting a $6.8 million general operating fund deficit. The projected deficit has improved $3.5 million from the mid-year forecast due to a forecasted transfer from the winter road maintenance reserve to cover the 2025's anticipated overspend. This change was made possible when at its October 8th, 2025 meeting, City Council concurred in the recommendations in Report CR 25-123-2025 Reserve Review, which recommended in part that the minimum balance in the winter road maintenance reserve be lowered from $1 million to -$3 million. Allowing the reserve to go into negative facilitated the forecast withdrawal to cover 2025's overspend. The third quarter forecast is based on the most current information we know, the September 2025 actual revenues and expenditures, and our professional judgment. There may be future unseen events or challenges that could impact several areas and the delivery of a balanced operating budget at the end of this year. The deficit is primarily related to projected shortfall of municipal surcharge tax revenue from Sask Power and Sask Energy of $4.4 million and $3.1 million from anticipated overage of fire and protective service salaries. This is due to payment of the 2024 retroactive under budgeting of new firefighter positions and fire salaries coming in higher than anticipated. The general fund reserve will be able to fund the forecasted deficit, leaving a balance of $15.1 million. By legislation, municipalities must balance their budgets and cannot operate with a deficit. This report also includes information on the city's utility fund operations, which is forecasting a surplus of $973,000. With that, we would like to submit the report for your review and are open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Can I have someone move the report? Mr. Willman? Thank you. Would you like to speak to the report?
Oh, sorry, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions on the report? Councillor Cleese?
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Bezo, Chair. Can I ask about 102 Ring Road Rail Grade Crossing Relocation Preliminary Design? I didn't even know that we were considering this. There'd be a lot of happy people knowing that we're actually thinking about it.
That was in the previous.
Is that, am I in the right spot?
Through the chair, that was the previous report.
Oh. Okay, I do not have a time machine. I'm going to the next one. Count me out until I,
Or question?
Yeah,
Thank you.
through the chair. So 6 million, 6.7 million is pretty close, given the total budget that you have. It's on the wrong side. You'd rather it be the other side for sure. But that's some pretty good budgeting. And just to add, it's not a nightmare yet. It's not the right side. It's not the right direction, but it's still pretty close. What was a couple of questions on just the variances that you've got, if they're explained better in the report, I apologize. The government grant program, the $14.4 million shortfall, do you expect that to come again, or what's that? Is that a shortage that will be, realized by year end, or?
So through the chair, so the 4.4 million from Sask Power and Sask Energy, is that what you're referring to?
You have a variance of just on the very first table, the government grant program specified $14.4 million deficit from budget. Like the budget was 17 million, the forecast is 2.9.
Yeah, no, through the chair, that is funding that we expect to receive in a subsequent fiscal year. So I think it's primarily the Housing Accelerator Fund. Okay. So we had budgeted to receive the full amount this year. We actually, it's just a timing thing. We're just timing our revenues, like matching with the expenditures. We actually haven't spent that money this year. So it's a non-impact to our bottom line, basically.
Okay, yeah. So yeah. There should be a reduced
reduced expenditures, yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay, that was the one. Then I see you've got the $4 million again from electricity and gas surcharges. And what is that again for? That was for the carbon tax?
So through the chair, so it's two different items. The Sask Energy one is a reduction in the municipal surcharge when they got rid of the carbon tax. So our portion of that was calculated based on the fact that we would have the carbon tax in place. It was eliminated in April. So that's a permanent reduction going forward. So it's reduced in the budget package as well. The one from Sask Power is our long-term agreement with Sask Power on them funding us so that we don't start our own power company, essentially. We had assumed a power rate increase, which would have increased our share, and then that never materialized. Again, that we've rolled that back for the budget for next year as well. So, but it will be a permanent variance for this year to the end of the year.
Right. Okay, thank you. Those are, I just was, yeah, questioning the revenue. Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Chalice, we do have a mandatory break in 1 minute. About a minute and a half. Do you want to, does everyone want to forego the break or keep on going?
Keep going.
Well,
We're
technicalities.
so close, yeah.
Yeah, we'll just have to make a motion to forego the break and carry on. Anyone opposed? Amen? Okay, we'll carry on. Councillor Chalice?
We're such rebels, eh? Question on Appendix A1. Under corporate transactions. Is that where real sits? Where would they be in this? Or are they in this?
Through the chair, they're in community investments, or I'm just trying to find the
Community?
specific
Oh, it's right
one.
underneath corporate, okay. Of the 16 million. They're part of that?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Thanks. The other question was, as we come to agreements with the unions, how many of them tend to have backdated portions that we have to account for? Are they almost always like that?
Through the chair, most times they are. We let the agreements lapse and they take time to negotiate. Most of them will come with back pay. We try and do an accrual for most of them.
Okay.
We missed doing an accrual in last year's for the fire back pay.
Yeah.
So then it's falling all on this year's results.
Okay, so you have somewhat of a heads up because we know when these dates are coming up for further negotiations. So maybe, I guess I'm just saying, please make sure to put them in here so we have a heads up of what it might be and when it might be coming.
Through the chair, yes, that's our process. We had just
Yeah.
missed this one.
Okay, thanks, pal. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Mancinelli.
Thank you. Through the chair, graph like this really means not much unless you can see something that's a little bit whacked out a bit. And just to ask, tourism seems to be a little bit in that area. Just about 18%. Is there any insights there or anything weird? Or,
Through
page 50 out of 78.
So through the chair, with tourism, we received an extra $250,000 from the Hotels Association. And so we brought that to council after budget, but to get that money, we had to agree to spend the 250 more as well. So that's the variance.
Really good answer, and that's why Reading doesn't mean what it looks like every time, so I appreciate that. I did have one more question here. Just got to thumb up for a second to go back where I was. Looking at all the pressure of administration, just wondering, with the overtime, we had the whole thing about overtime reduction, but I also know that this has been a time of great pressure. And also salary lag and trying to fill positions. I see that overtime's up pretty good. Just wondering what the indicators are behind that overtime. How does that reflect on administration? Is that a tell, or is that anything we can get information from?
Through the chair, I wouldn't say it's a tell, though that makes our job sound much more exciting than they probably are. I would say, you know, so in finance, I'll talk to the finance is over. You should always be over in finance, given the cyclicality of the work. So rather than staff up and having too much staff, you know, I've told my staff I expect overtime. We don't want it to be to a point where we're burning out staff and turnover is becoming an issue, but just given the cyclicality of it, I'll say in transit, we're having a couple issues there. Number one is sort of around the maintenance staff. We've been really diligent in trying to keep that staff complement down and haven't been super successful. We can't stop buses from breaking down. And so that's sort of driving up overtime there. And then it becomes a double-edged sword. That's hard to recruit for. So those positions are highly in demand. And so we end up with some vacancies that take a long time, which then drive overtime even higher. So that one specifically, we've been trying to hire up to reduce the overtime bill there. Hopefully we'll get there. So it just depends. Those are sort of the two big moving parts. I don't know if we had anything else specific you wanted to talk to in the overtime report.
No, I know we have goals, and I know they can't always be attained. A little bit of information on where the goals are being overshot and why really helps out, especially with something like trades and special skills or cyclical nature like the finance you point out. My interest for how I represent comes back to some of the comments. Sometimes some people have a view that, you know, if you're getting a water main replaced, sometimes that guy comes in on the day, on the weekend, or finish a job up, and people have the impression that maybe they're moving things around to get extra overtime out of a job, and that's why the budget's so high, and I think that's more incidental. The information you give me helps me inform people better on the nature of the actual goings on at City Hall and how that actually happens. So that's why I asked those questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I do have a final couple questions for administration pertaining to the last item that we just talked about. Can you expand more around A2, line 7, and line 13? And the question is, how do we get that better?
I don't have, sorry, through the chair, I don't have numbers on my printout. It cut off.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, well, I'm just gonna say, okay, so the overtime in your office, Mr. Anderson, and then the technology piece.
Okay, so the overtime in my office?
Yeah, and then the technology piece. So we're spending, like, from when I see these numbers, what we're spending on some overtime and technology shortfalls.
I have that. So I'll speak to the, can you have the technology piece? So again, for overtime for finance, it's everywhere I've worked, because you have month ends, quarter ends, those types of year ends, those types of pressures where you have, you know, and with procurement here, we have time crunches in the spring as we're coming into the summer season. There's natural areas where we expect overtime, right? And that's why we have an overtime budget in finance. Again, if we had zero overtime, we'd be coming back to you saying we probably have too many resources. And if the overtime gets too big and we're putting strain, that's where we really monitor that to make sure. We do, I would say, in our out-of-scope staff that don't get paid overtime and don't show up here in finance, we're very strained right now, and so that's why we're putting some positions forward to hopefully reduce that. But I'm not concerned with the overtime that we pay out for finance. I think it's a very reasonable number, and we continue to monitor it. In terms of the technology piece.
More like that software stuff again.
So I'm just need to know a specific number you're looking at.
770, no, sorry, wrong one.
You talked the deficit in
Yeah.
technology spend of
Technology spend,
830,000?
yeah.
Ms. Carrick will speak to that.
Sure. Sure. So technology, I think last year and this year has had deficit recorded in their department, and it's due to software and telephone costs and unrealized salary lag that's coming in higher than budget.
So a combination of software and budget aspects.
A combination of software and telephone costs coming in higher than budget.
Okay, well, is there, I'm gonna say, is this a mechanism to say, you know, what does it take to invest so we don't have those costs come in? What kind of mechanism do we need to do this? Like,
So through the chair, to not have technology costs?
no, we need the technology cost, but if we're paying money on overtime in different areas, instead of investing in software so we can actually run more in analytics and intelligent reporting, instead of having a really smart group of people giving us reports versus the analysis of the reports, how do we get everyone there to get the investment into the technology piece so everyone could, you know, work with less stress and
Yeah.
not incorporate all these overtime?
Great question. You're right. With better technology tools, we would be putting less strain on human intervention and things like manual entry. So we do have, you know, again, we can only focus on a couple things. There's lots of technology. If I could wave a magic wand that we could look to implement. We do have a meeting with a firm actually on December 15th that my staff will be going to on new AI tools that are coming out in the finance area. So we are looking at new tools. We do have the EBS project and the Hyperion project, which we hope to get over the finish line as well in the APRS area. We've been on a multi-year project trying to improve our assessment system, which we use to collect revenue and send out all of our invoices, et cetera. So we are looking at all those core pieces and slowly improving them. Once we get through those, I would say we would start to focus on things like expense software that makes it a lot more seamless, reconciliation software, payable software. We are hopefully going to have an inventory upgrade in the next couple of years, which if we do right, will help to automate, you know, entries into our GL. Fingers crossed, that's part of that project. So we do have lots of projects on the go. So, but again, we're moving at the pace as fast as we can, given resource constraints.
Okay, thank you very much. One more thing on A3. Last budget season, council approved 2 auditors. We hired 1, I believe. We got 2 hired?
Through the chair, yeah, we hired the second auditor. He moved here. He's from out of province. And he's here now in the building and starting to learn our processes. So we're very excited. So fully staffed up.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Councillor Teclise?
We can close debate.
Well, if no other questions, I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will start with Rob Wilman,
Favor.
Councillor Sickles,
In favor.
Mr. Ing,
In favor.
Mr. Chair,
In favor?
Mayor Bashinsky,
In favor.
In
Mr.
favor.
Rora, and Councillor Mazzinelli has temporarily stepped away from the meeting. The motion is carried unanimously by those present.
Thank you very much. Before we close the meeting for this evening, we do have one more thing. I'm going to turn it over to the clerk to explain the procedural matter at hand.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. We need to draw our attention back to the second last item, which was item AFC 25-28. Members of the committee would have received an email from the secretary advising of an adjustment that needed to be made. And it was just to accept a revised Appendix A. So in order to fix this, because we didn't catch this when we were debating the item today, I will need a motion to reconsider item AFC 25-28, just so that we can ensure that that's part of the motion. Mr. Chair, I need you just to call it.
Yeah, Mr. Willems, would you like to make a motion? Reconsideration motion, okay. Would you like to open for discussion? Okay,
Just ask
any
if-
questions?
Just ask if anyone's opposed to reconsidering the item.
Is there anyone opposed to reconsidering the item? No, no one opposed, okay. Any debate? Would you like to close?
That's carried.
Carried.
Okay. So the adjustment that we need to make to the main motion that was on the floor is just to include in that motion that Appendix A of this report be replaced with a revised Appendix A that includes data from all City of Regina divisions. So if you can just get someone to move that amendment.
Can I ask someone move the amendment? Mr. Cleese? Any, would you like to speak to the amendment? Would you like any conversation on the amendment? No, no debate? Would you like to close?
Just ask if anyone's opposed.
Anyone opposed? Carried.
Now you can move, Jeremy.
All right. All right, last item on the agenda. Mr. Ing. Thank you very much. Anyone's name, or sorry, anyone's name? Anyone opposed? No. Carried.